I like to point that out to people
It's the Superman shirt and the glasses that do it.
Yeah.
Well,
welcome back. We are in the OT, baby.
Well, this is why I have Bruce that helps me, because I had the wrong camera on during that. Can you tell I'm brighter now?
A little bit.
Yes. Yes.
So I had for some reason it was grabbing my webcam instead of my Brio, which is a HD 4K. And I thought, is it my lighting? Because normally I do my show at 1 o'clock. And so I was adjusting. I'm looking at the Blue Ridge Mountains straight in front of me, which is natural light. And normally the natural light is all I need. But yeah, so now I'm back with a lot more.
Well, cool. Well, welcome back to the OT. That was fun. I want to jump right into some stuff that maybe you talked about a little bit. You talked about your text list, and that seems to be somewhat popular. Seeing guys like, I think maybe Gary Vaynerchuk, who's doing a text community. Yep. Can you talk about that? How's that working for you? You like it?
Yeah. So I used to own a company called One Mobile Media, and we helped companies leverage text marketing as well as mobile apps. We ended up phasing that business into our main agency business and stopped selling it. Although, and I think, in 2012, when we were doing this, 2011, it was kind of cutting edge even back then, really, compared to what it is now.
Yeah.
So I use, I've been, this last year in particular, I've added text marketing. I've been playing with 2 different platforms. So one is Click to Send and one is community.com. Then there's pros and cons to both, but community is it's like $100 a month, and you can have like up to a few thousand contacts. People can text you, and you can have keywords where they get something, but if they don't add you to their contacts and take that next link action with you, you actually don't earn the right to have them on your list. They don't show up on your text list. So it is a little tricky, but I do love the platform because I can it's like an email. I can check a couple times a day. I can pull it up and I can see the messages to me, and then I can respond really quickly. And people keep it short because it's text.
Yeah.
So I'm still doing it on my laptop, but I can keep the messages short, and it's almost like people get to the point faster when they're doing text community building and communication versus an email. They'll rant and you don't have time to go read all these long emails all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of doing the text marketing. So I use text to deliver content. So if and to promote. So if I'm going to be going live, like on a show, and I know ahead of time the details of the way for them to be able to watch, or my, particularly my own shows, I'll send a text to my list and say, hey, I'm going to be going live for this interview, and I'll get more people to show up. And so, for instance, the other night I was being interviewed by Dan Kennedy's CMO, and I text marketed one of my lists and said, hey, I'm going to be live, and you can catch it here. I also use it with my mastermind group to give more intimate access and communication, where I can just go in, click on the list I want to send a text to or a message to. I can add links, videos, and photos. And people are reaching. I mean, think about this. Like when you get a text,
you open it.
You're reaching people in their pockets, and it's like the number's crazy high. I don't know what the actual stat is, but it's probably over 80% of the people will read their text within the first few minutes of getting it.
Yep.
And your deliverability is much higher than email, and open rates.
Are you able to respond?
It's harder to build the list though, because people don't want to text. Sorry.
Are you able to respond to individual text replies to individual? Yeah. Okay.
On community, actually on community and Click to Send, I can. The difference is on community, they can just text me and say, hey, Joe. And then it has a one auto response, and it says, hey, add me to your address book, and then I can communicate with you. On Click to Send, you have to send a keyword to me, and then that keyword puts you in my list automatically, which I really like, but it's less one-to-one personal seeming, although it does have that, because when I send out a text, people still think they're getting it from me personally sometimes, and they'll respond. And then I do see it come up, and I can respond personally.
Yeah.
Joe, it seems like a full-time job with all the different tools and techniques that you have. Where do you find the time?
So the key is to hire a VA who can sift and sort through the ones that they can respond to with your typical responses or answers that you would always give, and or filter the ones that need your attention separately into a folder.
Right, and that way you can focus on building your brand. Hey, I've
anything I send out, any podcast stuff I set up, all the editing, everything is done by my team.
Wow, that's
you want
great.
to be able to just show up.
You had touched on Tai Lopez on the penalty box. I did some deep diving, and there was a guy in 2017 that took your course and his course. Do you know a Kieran O'Brien?
Kieran
O'Brien. Right,
yeah,
right.
He lived by me.
Does he really? So he went in deep dive on why one over the other, and I don't think I watched the whole thing. I don't really remember him saying which one was best, but he made it clear that with the amount of value that you're bringing compared to the other course, that was his choice. So
here let me give you some insight and intel on that. He was an affiliate for my course.
Okay.
So if by doing that, he got people that would buy my course, and then he got a 30% commission. And he's a smart marketer. Here's the other thing. When he did that video, he was 17 or 18 years old.
Right.
When he took Tai Lopez's course, he was 17. And how I know this is he lives 40 minutes from here, and he reached out to me and told me, hey, I'm in high school. I started my own agency because of you while in high school, and I have clients. He had like 9 clients already.
Yeah.
And he said, there's a group of us that live in this Northern Virginia area who would love to take you out for coffee, and spend an hour with you. And I agreed to it. And so I met a handful of my students, which was very valuable intel for me to understand what was valuable to them in the course. They were a wide range of ages, but there's like 5 of them. We met at a Pete's Coffee in Ashburn, Virginia. And he was like 18 or 17. He had just gotten accepted into Penn State. And he said, I'm going to turn down Penn State and go out on my own. I think now he's 23, because that was 2017. You saw that. Maybe he's 21 or 22. I don't know. He's very young still. He's on his second supercar, I think. And he's amazing. He's an amazing. He spoke at my event twice.
No kidding.
On Instagram marketing. So he's an Instagram influencer in Instagram marketing, and he does an amazing job.
I'll have to follow him. So adding Tai Lopez, who, honest to God, until I met you and realized that you worked for him, I thought he was pretty much full of shit, to be honest with you. And just being honest, and now I know he's going around buying distressed brands and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, bought Radio Shack. Just bought Radio Shack.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I don't know whether to add him to this list, but Tai Lopez, Harvey McKay, Jeffrey Gitomer, Jack Welch, which one has done the most for your personal growth?
Name the 4 again. You said Harvey
Tai
and
Lopez,
Jeffrey?
Harvey McKay, Jeffrey, and Jack Welch.
Okay, so that's a tie between Harvey and Jeffrey.
Okay.
So Jack Welch was who I studied in my master's program, and he's amazing, and his books, his philosophies, his concepts, amazing. But he'd be least on that list. And no taken away from it, just because all 4 of those people are amazing. So Tai opened me up to the educational market. So at the time I had a 10-year-old agency, or at the time we were about 6 years old, and he had asked me to come in and be the lead trainer because he was starting this new course and didn't know what he was doing. And I had no idea what any of it was about. I literally made the outline for my part on the plane on the way there. And then got to be part of his mastermind groups and things like this that I spoke at. And so he opened up an educational door for me, which I'm grateful that he kind of pushed me to do that and to realize that there's a lot of leverage in online education. But Harvey and Jeffrey. So Jeffrey would probably be number 1, Harvey would be number 2. Here's why. In 2011, one of my employees said, Jeffrey Gitomer is doing a social media for sales pros seminar, and he's going to have Sally Hogshead there. Lewis Howes was there teaching on LinkedIn, and his only book at the time was on LinkedIn. That's all he did at the time, was teach LinkedIn. And a couple other marketing authors and speakers are going to be there. And I said, and the lady who worked for me was my director of client happiness, my director of client services. And she says, it's $10,000 to sponsor the event, or 10 or 15. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot to sponsor Jeffrey's event and to have a table or a booth at the back of the room. So I get on the phone with Jeffrey. He convinces me to do it. It's the best investment I made in my agency business and probably myself ever. We go to King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. We're there. And I tell him, Jeffrey, you don't even have a blog yet. You don't even have YouTube set up yet. This is 2011. And he didn't have any of this yet. He was barely on Facebook. I said, let us help you get your social media in order, get your blog set up so you can start blogging and all this. He says, okay. So we start helping him. He blows up online. And one day he calls me and says, do you know who Harvey McKay is? And I said, I have several of his books behind me right now.
And I love envelopes.
Huh?
And I love envelopes.
Yeah. In fact, one of my favorite books by him is, here's my, one of the bookshelves I have that has his books on. A whole row is his books there. And I said, well, man, I would love to have Harvey's new books. He says, you got a new book coming out. He said, well, wait a minute, Joe. I'm sitting in his office. And he's going to be in Des Moines tomorrow. I said, okay. And he says, and he's presenting to the Des Moines Register, and he wants you there in the front row. And he's teaching the sales team, and he wants to spend a few minutes with you afterwards before he has to catch his plane and leave. And he literally is flying private. And so he has to catch a plane. I said, okay. So I go there. I meet Harvey. Harvey spends about 20 minutes with me. And then I end up getting, through a couple more conversations, hired to work with his company. And then that led to me speaking at his mastermind roundtable group, which was $75,000 to join.
Wow.
I was one of the speakers. I followed Dan Quayle. People like Dave Winfield was one of the people in the audience, and Bruce Glenn Stearns, who did Undercover Billionaire, and other people. And the following year, I joined it. So I got to spend a couple of years. That first year was as a speaker, and then I got to just get to know the group. But that group went on to, I made millions of dollars from that group.
Wow.
So, and that all came because of Jeffrey's relationship. So Jeffrey's, and honestly, that I wouldn't have been where I was at to even approach Jeffrey if I hadn't read all the sales books and had the success I had as a sales trainer in my own sales training company prior to starting my own agency. I started my agency in 2010. And I had really pivoted from a sales training company that I had for 10 years prior.
Were you involved with the Ace of Sales email thing that he did a while ago?
No, so that was Andy Horner who created that company and was the main promoter behind that. But I was a customer of it for a long time.
Me too.
Yeah. One of the questions I had for you, and it kind of leads into what you were just talking about your books, but what are you currently reading?
That's a great question, because the answer is a lot. You want me to go get them?
Our friend Alan Maurice, who's the only person ever been kicked out of the penalty box, by the way. Alan's the guy that can read 5 or 6 books at once. I'm not. I've got to either listen or read. And
I just did a book review on this book on my blog.
Okay.
On joesoto.net.
Yep.
And I'm a big Dan Kennedy fan. I have all of his books. And the Renegade Millionaire is really his mindsets. He calls it the 7 secrets to extreme wealth, autonomy, and entrepreneur success. It's really his 7 mindsets behind his thinking. And I just finished that one. So a couple of the other books I have that are down here beside me. So I'm going to reach down and grab them. Hold on, because I can reach it from where it's at towards my desk. So I'm reading Over Deliver right now by Brian Kurtz. And Brian Kurtz is he's been around a long time in the internet marketing world, and he's done extremely well. It's called Build a Business for a Lifetime for a lifetime playing the long game in direct response marketing. So he's also all about your list and direct response marketing. Direct response marketing, by definition, is if I'm going to market, I'm going to market with the intention of being able to turn that into revenue by generating a response to my direct marketing, right? And so that's the simplest way to understand it. And Brian Kurtz is one of the most amazing people at sharing how to do that. So that's what I'm currently reading. And there's a few other books that are that are on that list, but I read constantly. Yeah. I have a new book that shows up. There's another one I just got. I'm like in the last chapter reading it, which is called, and it's phenomenal. I would actually recommend the one I'm going to say right now over anything else I just mentioned first, which is Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. And it's about how to remove yourself if you want to scale and grow. And don't ask, how do I do that? Ask, who do I know who can do that for me? And so it's about aligning and building your team of people who can do the things that they're best at so you can do what you're best at.
Yeah, that was, I think, a conversation we had in the last couple of weeks that I'm always kind of amused by the fact that when our kids are in school, we expect them to get straight A's, right? Even though you may not be good at math, you may be okay at math, but great at English or whatever. And as adults, I think sometimes if you're smart, you realize, like, look, that's not my strength. I'm going to try to be better at it, but I'm not going to be good at hosting this event, but Wes is. So I'm going to get Wes. We hired Wes because you know what? He's the best at this. So I think as adults, we become smarter and we surround ourselves with people that can offset what our weaknesses and our strengths are. But yet we make our kids try to live up to this model of you have to be good at everything. And it's such a myth sometimes. I mean, I'm still going to make my 8-year-old daughter try to get straight A's because she needs to learn and she's growing. But that is. What was it? Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. I'm going to have to check that out because I think it's important. So, Tim,
it's really good because one of the things what it did when I was reading the book was there's a couple of ideas I have, and one in particular that I've shelved. And I've shelved it because I saw the overwhelming work that it would take for me on the how part to actually execute and do it, even though I know how.
Right.
It's just I can't add it to my plate. And what the book convinced me of was time out. You know, this could be another business line for me, another company altogether. And all I need to do is find somebody else to run the idea who I could bring in as a partner to compensate them, who has this skill set to run and execute the way I know how, and would also manage and help scale and build the team, which I don't want to have to deal with. It's why I put off doing the podcast for so long. So, I do a StreamYard show, and then I go, and then we take that, we edit it, we throw it onto, we use Bcast, which is a podcast distribution. So that way the podcast shows up on Stitcher and Apple and Spotify, and it gets distributed. And all I saw was, oh my God, I could figure out how to do all that. I don't want to have to do any of that. Right. So I said, I don't want to do my podcast art. I don't want to have to build the podcast page, even though I know how to do all that. Right. So I have a whole virtual team, and I have one person who's just really good at audio and video editing. I have another person who's really good at doing podcast graphics and graphic artwork. I have another person who knows how to build out the landing pages and build it into Kajabi for me. Right. I have another person who messages and mails the guests and lets them know when their stuff's been edited and how they can share the links and all that, because every guest gets their own podcast page on my website that has the video and the audio link and their show notes and a link to it's all about the guest. So the link is to, how they can find out more about that guest or whatever they wanted to promote. I always ask everyone before they come on my show, would you like to promote at the end, or what link would you like me to share? And, for instance, on the penalty box, I gave the link that I would most want to share, which was Digital Attraction Hacks, because it's instant value. It's tremendous value to the listener, and it builds my list. If I send them to joesoto.net, that might build my list if they're an agency or consultant, but it really is only going to appeal to that specific niche. So when I'm a podcast guest on other shows, I tend to give something that's more well-rounded or more broad-reaching that can help more people. And no matter what type of entrepreneur or business owner they are. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
I do that for the guest, and then I package that. Now I don't do any of that stuff. All I do is show up on StreamYard and hope I, don't mess up, which I do all the time.
Well, along the lines of that, because that's something I had written down as well that I was going to bring up on the other show. We didn't even get to it, but do you recommend? I think you're going to say yes. You recommend taking this live, do the live show, but turn the live into an audio podcast as well, to where because people are going to listen on YouTube, but there are still people that are going to go to Spotify and they're going to listen on Spot, right? And so do you recommend taking this live and taking the audio out and making it an actual audio podcast?
The answer is yes. And if that is your objective, the engagement changes a little bit. So we're not live with, are we live? We're not live like on our regular channels.
No, this is all recorded.
We're recording, but we're not live. So if it's a delicate balance, right? I was trying to decide, do I do podcasts? Do I do web TV shows? And it was like, well, I'll just do both. But I have to be conscious of that because someone listening to my show in their car 4 months from now doesn't want to hear me saying, hey, Jimmy, thanks for coming on and joining us today. They don't even know they have no reference for that. They're listening to it in their car as a podcast.
Right.
So I have to be with the interaction. I have to I'll say the questions. I'll say, well, so Jimmy has a question and I'll say the question because I want the people who's listening in the car 4 months from now to understand the context.
Right.
I have to be careful of, so the butting of the heads is, well, then you can't really interact with all the people who join you live. And the answer is that's true. So, but it's not my goal. My goal is not that interaction. My goal is to have a podcast that people listen to for years to come and want to subscribe to, and then I can build my list and ultimately make money from my podcast. Right. Yep. So, and give a platform for my guests to get maximum exposure. So if one of my promises is, this is how I get a lot of more well-known people on my show as well, is I can offer them something. I can say, listen, I can get you 50,000 views and I can get you on my podcast, which will be evergreen and I'll constantly promote and I'll give you a promotional page and they go, I'm in.
Awesome.
So that's the method to that madness.
Hey, Joe.
My recommendation is to turn it into an audio podcast. Why not?
Yeah.
One of the things that you had promoted in your must-have apps and links a while back was Descript. And I think that, loading something like this into Descript and then going through and taking out any of the, hey, Kellen or hey, Joe or whatever, and then the ums and the ands and the knows and the coughs and anything that you don't want. I haven't got a chance yet to play with it to the extreme, but I think a tool like that would be really good, for taking something like this and using it again and repurposing it in the form of either the audio or even just creating clips from that. Is just, I found that tool to be just absolutely phenomenal. So
it is, and you're absolutely right, Wes. So you're 100% right. So if you have someone like Wes to edit, then you 100% would use a tool like Descript. I think it's descript.com, which allows you to actually extract and take out words and substitute words. So it does take more time and more effort and energy to edit. If you're not doing multiple shows a week, then that doesn't seem like a big task to take on. But that is one way to mitigate that for sure.
Hey, I know we're running up against time here. I want to throw out my last kind of thought question for you and then let Tim and Wes, but we're all a part of this, which is Megamind, which is a mastermind group that we started in the summer. And you've obviously talked about some success that came from being in mastermind coaching groups. And I think our group has just been absolutely incredible. And we started a new group, Megamind Pro, and that's been really cool to see people grow in a matter of 2 weeks, just learn and change and adapt. Will you talk about overall just mastermind groups? And I think people are somewhat kind of skittish and they don't know really what it is and what's the value. And will you talk about that?
Yeah, there's so many different levels of value of it. So there's, the first I was talking about the mastermind group with the Harvey McKay roundtable. I was probably close to the smallest fry in that group. What I mean by that, the smallest revenue. There was, the owner of Modell's, Mitch Modell, was in that group. Now they've since sold that brand off to Ty Lopez, and he's on to another company. But there were 2 billionaires in the group. There were probably, of the 28 people, 10 of them had businesses of 10 million or more. So I had inserted myself and surrounded myself with a group of people who were at levels I wanted to get to. And so it was an enormous opportunity for me to learn. And then I had a certain expertise that I could add value to all those people. In fact, many of the people in my mastermind group became my clients. But I had so much to learn from them, and I did. And so that's one. To be able to, they always say two heads are better than one. In a mastermind group, you're surrounded with people who are like-minded, who want to be able to grow, but they're also willing to give. That's one of the conditions of our mastermind groups. You're willing to give value, not just take value, right? So you have to be a giver. And there's a great book by Adam Gant called Give or Take, which we give to all of our mastermind people, which is really, really powerful. I recommend that book because it really sets the mindset for it. But also it turns into, the relationships are invaluable. So I have one of the guests, I'll give you an example. So our mastermind is a very high level mastermind that we hold, that I'm partnered with Jeffrey on this year. I've had it for this is my third year doing it. And this year I brought Jeffrey as a partner and said, let's partner this time. I'd love to partner with you in a mastermind. And it's in St. Petersburg, Florida for 3 days next week, the 1st through the 3rd of December, based on the time we're doing this show. Well, one of the guests that's flying in, not charging us, who trains the Navy SEALs like every 3 or 4 months, as well as corporate clients around the world, is Joe Sweeney. And Joe Sweeney has written, he wrote The Networking as a Contact Sport. He wrote After Further Review and some other books. He used to be Brett Favre's sports agent way back in the day. And he was in that mastermind group that I was with at Harvey, and he's flying there. Now we're flying him in and covering his travel expenses, but he normally could command $10,000 to $20,000 for speaking and training like he's going to do. And he's just doing it because we have a good relationship, and I'm willing to help him and he's willing to help me. And that relationship network you build from your mastermind pays dividends for many years to come, and it's completely unexpected. And so I've had several people who have been speakers at my conferences and my events that have been in my mastermind, people that show up as guests. I just partnered with another one of my old mastermind members from that mastermind on another project we're getting ready to start in December. And then I'm speaking in March at her event in Phoenix. So those relationships have not gone away. And so that's the real value of these masterminds, is that you'll continue to add value to each other's lives even after the mastermind's over with, or you get no longer a meeting. Yeah. And then the goal is, like last week, I was at a mastermind that cost $30,000 a year. It was in Austin, Texas. You meet 4 times a year for 2 days. And again, I'm sitting at a table with people that have bigger businesses than me. And that's invaluable because I want to learn how to scale and get to those different levels. And at the same time, I'm able to add, my 2 cents for what my particular expertise is in. And we're all adding value to each other.
Yep. Tim?
Well, we could probably do another hour with you, Joe. The amount of knowledge, the amount of questions that I haven't gotten to, and I won't do that. I wanted to thank Wes for his hard work again. And if anyone needs to do a live, he's my man. I want to thank our sponsor, Woodstock Brewery, brewery up here in New Hampshire, for sticking with us. I don't really have much more that wouldn't take another half hour. So,
by the way, what is your background, Tim?
I own it.
Is it an Innivu?
No. My personal background or this background?
The one that I'm looking at right now. Is that a painting? What is it?
We did a live event for a client a couple of years ago based on Back to the Future, the movie. And we wrapped this entire building with graphics. And this is the scene from the diner. be. We illustrated it. We had it done. So I didn't want it to go to waste. It now hangs in our studio. So
I love it.
yeah, thanks.
I really love it.
Before I changed, put my logo on there, it said "kick me." So I think I had to change that. So
I love it. I think it's cool.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, Joe, thank you for being on.
And guys, anything you need, just let me know. And I need, unfortunately, the times that the Megamind groups tends to meet just do not work well for me. Like Fridays at 5 is the absolute worst time because, first of all, I don't work after 4 o'clock on really any given day. Number two, that's my date night with my wife. And so that's why I'm never on those, in case you're wondering. It just does not work.
Wes has the same problem. He doesn't work after 1 o'clock, and then he's out with women and every night. So
that's why his back hurts.
Well, sometimes we hop on our laptops in the evenings and stuff and work, but I try to be done 4:30 with everything, so I can be there for my wife's making dinner and other stuff's going on. I try to end my days a little shorter.
Yeah,
but Fridays especially, we're already thinking where are we going on our date and where are we going to eat?
Yeah. Right. Hey, I wanted to, I wrote this down. We have to finish the show, which will come out on Friday. But Wes, congratulations to your son for winning the state football championship.
Wow.
I know you're proud Papa Bear, and that's cool stuff. So
what year is he, Wes?
He's a junior, and they've never done it before in school history. So it was a really fun Friday.
Wes, where's home for you?
New Bremen, Ohio, up here in the middle of German country. We're a village. We have the Miami Erie Canal comes through town like a Norman Rockwell picture that you could step into.
So we had our football season canceled here, high school.
Oh,
and all the little league football. My younger sons play football, and it was all canceled. Everything.
That breaks my heart on so many. So this is my son over here. That's from his senior year. And if he didn't play his senior year of football, he wouldn't have had his college scholarship. So he went to school for free, and that breaks my heart for kids that didn't get their senior year. It's awful.
Yeah. Fortunately, my son who runs track, they are doing track, and it's indoor track, but they practice outdoors, and then they run indoors at events throughout the winter. But he's a junior, but they're still not in school, and they're not planning on it for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's crazy. They stopped around here this week. All virtual for the rest of the year.
Wow. We got really lucky here with our football game. During the third quarter, they stopped the game, and they come out and said DeWine, who's our governor, was watching the game and saw that we weren't social distancing in the stands and threatened to shut it down. So It was very serious. So yeah, it's the whole country's gone.
We have a Republican governor in a very Democratic state, and he just today got the email, mandatory mask all the time. If you're outside, gotta wear it. We'll see how
where are you?
I'm in New Hampshire, just over the Massachusetts border. So,
got it. Yeah, I'm in Virginia, so enough said about that state.
Well, guys, let's wrap this up. Thank you, Joe, for being on. Wes,
for having me, guys. Great talking with you.
We love Wes and his dark goat.
Anytime. Thanks, Wes.
Thank you.
Timmy, thank you. You guys have a great Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you soon.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.